We appreciate everyone's patience. Just waiting on 2 more council members and the city manager, and then we'll get started. Okay. Okay, this is good. I think this was mine. So I had a pen for sure. It's okay. All right. So it looks like we have everyone here. So welcome everyone to the City Council regular meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is now 6:33 p.m. Will everyone please stand and join us for the flag salute? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll?
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Here.
Councilmember McQueen-Lejeune,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Here.
and Mayor Martinez.
Present. Tonight's inspiration will be given by our Councilmember McQueen-Lejeune.
Good evening, everyone. My inspiration tonight is just taking in the transition of us moving from the summer to the fall. So as we continue to move quickly towards fall, which begins with the autumnal equinox this Saturday, warmer weather, longer days, the time we spend outdoors have begun to fade. Schools have started, temperatures have cooled, and shorter days signify the end of summer. But a beautiful thing begins to happen in the fall. The leaves begin to change colors, then they fall from the tree, which you may have already witnessed. But during this time of transition, the tree, its branches, its trunks, his trunk and its roots remain. They don't change. In fact, we see more of the tree in the fall than in any other time of the year. We might refer to the tree as being bare, but we are really only now seeing the tree versus the leaves that cover it. Using this transition from summer to fall as a metaphor for time of personal reflection and transition, whether your transition is internally or externally driven, know that change or transition is a beautiful gift that reminds us that while we cannot control what happens outside of us, we can always control our responses and our interactions with one another. Thank you.
That's a beautiful inspiration. I know you know I appreciate anytime we recognize the seasons. Mr. City Attorney, can you please provide the closed session report?
Absolutely, Mayor Martinez. Following review of the Brown Act, there was no reportable action taken in closed session tonight.
We will now hear public comments not pertaining to items on the agenda. Zoom participants, please use the raise your hand feature if you would like to comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. This process will be the same for comments pertaining to each agenda item. Madam Clerk, does anyone have a public comment tonight?
Yes, we have a public comment from Becky Bruning. Oh, hold on. I'm going to turn on your mic so everyone can hear you.
That better?
There you go.
Okay. I'm here on behalf of the Real Guppy Outdoors tonight. First of all, I want to thank everyone who came to the function and contributed to our fundraiser. We ended up making $28,000 that night. So we had a fantastic night. This Sunday is our fish day, where we teach families and children how to fish at the end of Wainimi Pier from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. That's it.
And thank you, Ms. Bruning. Do we have any other public comments?
We have one more written public comment that I will share with you now. Good evening, Mayor Martinez, City Council, and staff. The Wainimi Chamber of Commerce will hold its next morning mixer event, Rise and Shine Networking, this Wednesday, September 20th, from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Sponsored by Anna Cappuccino, we invite you to join us and jumpstart your day. The Chamber will be treating guests to a free cup of coffee, meet local leaders and like-minded business professionals to exchange leads and increase your business contacts. Chamber members and non-members welcomed as always. We do hope to see you there. Remember, the early bird gets the lead.
Okay.
That concludes public comments for general. The other ones are pertaining to items on the agenda.
May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda?
Move to approve?
Second.
May we please have a vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Do any members of council have any conflicts of interest to disclose for any item on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to the presentations. Our first presentation is the Banana Festival Proclamation, and I will be reading it tonight. Banana Festival. Whereas the 10th Annual Banana Festival will be held at the Port of Wainimi on September 30th, 2023, and whereas the Banana Festival was created by Commissioner Jess Ramirez and CEO Port Director Kristen Dekas to highlight the various contributions and positive impacts the port has made locally, regionally, and across the world. And whereas the port operations support the community by bringing $2.2 billion in economic activity and creating 20,032 trade-related jobs, and whereas trade through the Port of Wainimi generates more than $173.2 million in direct and related state and local taxes, which fund vital community services, and whereas the Port Authority began over 80 years ago with a mission to provide California's Central Coast agricultural community with an ocean link to the global market, and whereas the Banana Festival is a way to bring people out in a fun way to see and appreciate the port and learn more about its operations and its vital economic role in Ventura County, and whereas the City Council desires to join the celebration and support of the Banana Festival. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Port Wainimi does hereby encourage the community to go bananas at the Port of Wainimi Banana Festival and celebrate the diverse working port. Proclaim this 18th day of September 2023. And please excuse me for not bringing up Miguel Rodriguez, the community outreach manager from the port. Would you like to come up and say a couple words, please?
Thank you, Mayor, council members, and city manager, and members of the public. It's with great honor that I come here to invite you to our 10th annual Banana Festival. It's going to be a blast. As you know, we're going to have not only banana splits, but also banana flavored beer. So I know that could be a disaster in the making, but it's actually going to be pretty darn good. So if you're adventurous, I invite you to come out and enjoy, this opportunity, right, for us to not only connect as a community, but also to celebrate both the city and the port's partnership in creating a great impact here in the city of Wainimi. So with that, thank you so much for the proclamation, and we look forward to seeing you on September 30th. And just let us know, and we'll be happy to accommodate everybody. So everybody's welcome.
If I could, Mayor, I heard a rumor that there's going to be twice as many bananas as last year.
And I don't know how many there were last year, but twice as many sounds like a whole lot. So I wanted to put the plug in for that. But I just wanted to take the opportunity with the port to thank them and just to talk a little bit about last week. We had the city and the port for the first time did a joint trip to Washington, D.C. and packed in 11 meetings with representatives and different federal departments in 2 days, and still catching up on sleep from that. But it was a great partnership with the port, and I'm just wanted to announce that while we're recognizing them for Banana Festival and continuing to build that partnership with the port. So, and I'll take this over to Miguel. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to our second presentation, National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month Proclamation, presented by Mayor Pro Tem Perez.
Thank you, Mayor. So September is Suicide Awareness Month, and we have a proclamation I'd like to read. Whereas September is known as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and is intended to raise awareness on this stigmatized and often taboo topic, in addition to shifting public perception. And whereas suicidal thoughts, much like mental health conditions, can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background. And whereas importance should be placed on ensuring that individuals, friends, and families have access to the resources they need to discuss suicide prevention and to seek help. And whereas we encourage people to bring their voices together to advocate for better mental health care and encourage any person experiencing suicidal thoughts or behaviors to seek help. And whereas the development of crisis response system is critical for those at risk to have a number to call, a system to turn to that would connect them to treatment and support they need. And whereas while suicide prevention is important to address year-round, Suicide Prevention Awareness Month provides a dedicated time to come together with collective passion and strength around a difficult topic. And whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death among age 10 through 34 and the 10th leading cause of death overall in the United States, the overall suicide rate has increased by 35% since 1999. And whereas 46% of people who die by suicide had a diagnosed mental health condition, and while nearly half of individuals who die by suicide have a diagnosed mental health condition, research shows that 90% experience symptoms. And whereas we use this month to spread hope and vital information to people affected by suicide and encourage others to research, educate, and stand ready to recognize and assist those who need help. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme hereby recognizes Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and encourages the community to spread awareness for this important cause. And I'd just like to note to anyone who may or may not be listening, as a suicide loss survivor, I lost my son to suicide in 2019. So if anyone out there is suffering or needs help or is struggling with anything, please speak to someone immediately. Talk to anyone. It doesn't have to be someone you know. It could be a stranger. But the loss you leave behind will stay with that family member for the rest of your life. So I would recommend you think twice before contemplating that direction and seek help immediately.
We will now,
Just wanted to say a Hueneme resident recently committed suicide, and it was a friend of mine, and I'll be attending his funeral soon. And it is difficult for me because it's the first person that I've known who committed suicide. And I think, like, man, just one trip down the beach picking up trash, maybe we could have had that conversation, you know. I mean, and it's just heartbreaking. And he leaves behind a family, and his daughter is somebody that I've been mentoring for a very long time, and she's having a successful life. But yes, if you know, and if you are, seek help. It's really, really, really a terrible legacy to leave behind. And sometimes it's, I don't know, but it does. I think we all need to just work on wellness and help people if you see they're struggling. Thank you for bringing that.
we will now consider items on the consent calendar, which will be enacted in one motion unless a council member has a request to remove an item for discussion. May I have a motion and a second to approve our consent calendar?
Mayor, if I could, I just to clarify and actually correct something, I would ask if we could pull the finance and police department position reclassifications item so I can give a little bit of correction and explanation.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve all items on the consent calendar except for item number 7.
Second.
May we have a vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
We will now look at item number 7, Finance and Police Department position reclassification. The recommendation is to reclassify one of the existing customer service representative positions to a fiscal assistant position within the Finance Department, and also reclassify one of the existing Police Department full-time positions to an administrative sergeant position within the Police Department.
Thank you. And yeah, I got a correction to this while we were in closed session, and I didn't want it to be voted on with maybe some incorrect background that I gave on the item. So I just wanted to clarify. So the item is reclassifying 2 positions, one in finance department, currently a customer service representative to a fiscal assistant. And the reason, short reason for that is that with moving business licenses in-house to provide a better level of service to the community and not have people have to come to City Hall to get a phone number to call someone somewhere else. We've moved that in-house currently with a temporary employee, but that temporary employee has taken a position at another agency and is going to be leaving us. So it gave us an opportunity to look at our organizational structure, and we determined that we could actually accomplish it by reclassifying the customer service representative position to a fiscal assistant position, and it actually would save money versus the way we were doing it before. And I was asked before the meeting today if these items would come back with because a job description needed to be created. And when I left, I knew we were researching that, and I thought I knew the answer, but it turns out I was incorrect on the answer. These actually there is a job description for fiscal assistant that we have adopted and created, and I have copies of that I could provide. And so that is why the item was simply reclassifying them, since it's an existing position that we just currently aren't using. And then similarly, the same thing with the police department reclassification to a sergeant. We don't have technically an administrative sergeant position, but it was determined that the position could be filled as a police sergeant. And as we were reviewing the police sergeant job description to make sure that it had the duties that could be assigned of an administrative sergeant, and the determination was it does have those duties. So just a little bit of background on that modification. Currently, we have sergeants, but we don't have somebody who's specifically assigned as an administrative sergeant who would be able to handle report writing, press releases, paperwork, and those types of more office-focused duties. Instead of having one person specializing in that, currently we have the 5 sergeants and the commander and the chief all sort of sharing those duties. But converting one of the positions to an administrative sergeant would allow us to have somebody who specializes in that and who can perform and be accountable for those duties, which is a priority. So it's reclassifying one of the existing full-time positions to a sergeant, which is an existing position. And then we will assign that sergeant the administrative duties. And so hopefully that helped to clarify, but in short, both of those positions exist. So we were simply reclassifying those positions at this time. And we recommend doing so to address those items that I just discussed.
May I ask a question? And these 2 actions are budget neutral?
So there's a slight difference of the position that it was being converted from to what it's converted to. In finance, the difference is $11,000, but as mentioned, it actually ends up saving money because we had a temporary employee performing those duties who left. So we had a great temporary employee, so we weren't thrilled that they were leaving, but it forced us to look at this a little bit differently. So it will end up being budget neutral or even having some savings. And then for police, there's a cost of $10,000 for that position. We were identifying salary savings that well exceed the $10,000 this year. And then as part of the next year's budget, we would look at our budget and make sure we include those costs. So there would be that $10,000 increase in that just from converting a patrol officer to a sergeant. So
All right. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve item 7.
Second.
Madam Clerk, may we have a vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
All right, we're going to move on to public hearings. Item number 8, adoption of a resolution approving an engineering and traffic survey, including speed limit reductions in specified locations, an update and introduction for first reading, waiving further reading of an ordinance amending Article 3, Chapter 3, Part A, Division 15 of the Port Hueneme Municipal Code. Madam Clerk, do we have proof of publications as required by law and complete file, report, and exhibits?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Will staff please present the report?
yes, thank you. And I'm just going to do a brief introduction, and then I'm going to ask our Charles Cable, our engineer, and I believe our consulting engineer to speak to the specifics. But I wanted to just give a simple introduction focused on this item, but also kind of setting the stage for tonight. We have several items on the agenda tonight that relate to traffic, speeds, trying to look at ways to make the streets safer or to help slow down traffic in areas where we need to slow it down. So we wanted to kind of just explain that there probably isn't a magic bullet to address all of the different speed and traffic issues that we hear about in all the different locations, but we wanted to show the community that we hear that is a major concern. I sat out at the Public Works booth at Beach Fest and at the Health and Wellness Fest, and I was surprised that this is far and away the number one concern that we hear from the community. And so we sat down and we talked with Public Works, and there are things we were working on that we could use to try to address this in different ways. And so tonight, most of the items on the agenda, besides the last item related to investments, most of the other items on the agenda do relate to different tools that we have and that we're going to try to use to address speeds, address line of sight issues, and address safety in ways that we can do that. So with that, I'm going to ask Charles to give some more background on this particular item, which was a recommendation to reduce speed limits in specific locations.
The general public. There it is. Okay. So tonight we have before you a recommendation to adopt the speed resolution where generally we're looking to reduce speeds in certain areas. Patterson, we conducted a speed survey and the recommendation is to reduce speed limits on Patterson Road, southbound Channel Islands to Hemlock from 45 to 40. Channel Islands westbound, Victoria to Ventura from 45 to 40. Eastbound Hemlock Street from Victoria Avenue to Patterson Road. It's recommended that this roadway segment actually be deleted from the further Port Hueneme study, and that the speed limit be established by Oxnard, because it's actually the jurisdiction of the city of Oxnard. Evergreen Lane, Pleasant Valley to South Chase Street, and Sunkist Street, Ventura to North 6th Street, and Bryce Canyon, North 6th Street to the city limit. The placement of 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs along Sunkist, Bryce Canyon, and Evergreen Lane is recommended. Port Hueneme Road, Market Street to Ventura, we're recommending a decrease of the existing 35-mile-per-hour speed limit to 25. In addition to the above recommendations for streets that require an engineering and traffic survey, several existing street sections that were previously surveyed and posted are not required per CVC 22, California Vehicle Code 22352. Any local street in the residential or business district has a prima facie limit of 25. So we're recommending a decrease from the existing 35-mile-per-hour speed limit to 25 mile per hour in the following streets: Crossjack Street, Market Street, San Pedro, Seaside Drive, Seaview Street, Surfside Drive, and Wheelhouse Avenue. Today, we also have Tom Miracle here. He's our contract traffic engineer from TKM Consulting, and he's available to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, we open the public hearing for any questions.
I do have one question. I've seen the map, but is there any way you can put it up so that everybody can see, everybody in the public can see where these visually where the speed reductions are going to take place?
I don't have,
If you give me one
Just-
second, I'll try
yeah.
to pull it up right now.
While she's checking on that, I have
Okay.
a question.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So I'm curious, what, Patterson, like most of our streets, main streets, turns into Oxnard at Woolley. So how do you address that? In other words, do we have is the speed limit going to be the same all the way through Oxnard, or does it change?
so we can only regulate our speed limits, but we can work with the other city to do that. So it can change, but it's also based on the amount of traffic that goes through that section. So we base it off the 85th percentile. So it's the amount of vehicles that are going through there in the 85th percentile range. So that's how it's addressed. That's why you'll see a difference on both sides of the street.
Is our new speed limit going to be the same as the speed limit when you cross the border into Oxnard?
Yeah. Mayor, members of council, there is in a couple of cases, the change where we're making a change by 5 miles an hour. The city of Oxnard has not made that change yet. We reached out to them back when the study was done a couple years ago. They have traffic engineering staffing issues right now. The staff that was there that I talked to is no longer there. We can reach out to see if they're going to make that change, but again, what Charles said is the city can regulate what's in the city. Typically, a 5 mile an hour change is not a problem. If you go more than 10, the California Manual on Traffic Control Devices says be careful of that, because that kind of change up or down can be really difficult for the public to understand why. So in my professional opinion, a 5 mile an hour change is not a big deal. When you start getting 10 or more, then you got to really look at, can the adjacent agency go look at it again? Have they looked at it? Can they make that change? Are they willing to support that change?
So with a 5 mile an hour reduction, do we do any additional surveying to see if it had the desired effect?
Well, we didn't do any surveying in the adjacent agencies. And we can go out once these are posted and some time has gone by, we can go out and do more surveys to see what the effect has been. But at this point, since they haven't been changed, we don't know what the effect will be.
Right. So how do we monitor the results of this action to further traffic safety in our city?
There's a couple ways that monitoring of speeds can be done. The way we are required to do them for this type of application is somebody has to do it. It can't be done electronically or remotely. It has to be done by a person because of the methodology. But we can get devices that measure speeds, whether it's tubes on the ground or video devices or radar type devices can be put out there. The speed display signs that the city already has may already have the ability to collect that data, and we can download that data. I don't know. Some manufacturers do, some don't. So the devices that are out there now might be able to start collecting that data, and we can look through that and see if it's made a difference.
So ongoing, we're going to continue to monitor and pay attention and see what positive effects have come from this. And so I just hope that we're not just having the mindset that we've solved the problem and we're just going to move on.
So if council so desires, we can ask Tom or someone to monitor the speeds there, to continue to monitor that. But also, this is going to require enforcement too. So we put the speed limits out there, and we need to enforce the speed limits. And that's what I think is going to be talked about later in the next agenda item.
Yeah, those are some of the tools we're planning to try to talk about. And to answer the question, yes, we'll continue to monitor. And I think even if we didn't monitor it, I think Facebook would tell us if we weren't doing a good job.
Can we go over the speed limit recommendations?
Sure.
Changes, please?
You want us to just go by the street?
Yes, please.
Okay. Correct me if I miss any. So it's going to be Patterson Road, and I'll ask Georgiana to kind of show that on the map here. It's to the top of the page. To the top of the page. Go move it up a little bit higher because it'll be the color coded part. So Patterson Road from Channel Islands to Hemlock will change from 45 to 40.
Okay.
Channel Islands from Victoria to Ventura will change from 45 to 40. Okay, that was that's there as well. Eastbound Hemlock Street from Victoria Avenue to Patterson Road we're saying that one, since most of it belongs to Oxnard, we're saying that part is not included and will be identified as part of the Oxnard speed study.
Yeah, and I did some research on this. In the past, what we've done is shared our results with Oxnard so they can use this. So based on the analysis, 35 is recommended, but we can't change it because most of that jurisdiction is Oxnard. But we will share it with Oxnard so they can use that data. But it has been previously surveyed, so we included it.
We have Evergreen Lane from Pleasant Valley to South J Street, Sunkist Street from Ventura to North 6th Street, and Bryce Canyon from North 6th Street to the city limits. We're going to be placing the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs.
Okay, and that's a little lower right on the map. It's kind of mixed in there. It's off to the what is that? The eastern part of the city. And then we have Hueneme Road from Market Street to Ventura, decreasing from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Yeah.
Is that every? And then decrease from 30 miles per hour to 25 for the following streets: Crossjack Street, Market Street, San Pedro Street, Seaside Drive, Seaview Street, Surfside Drive, and Willhouse Avenue.
Okay. Does council have any more questions for staff? Only questions at this time? All right. So we will now open to the public hearing and take public comment. The public hearing is now open for public input at 7:06 p.m. Are there any public comments regarding this one item?
There are several written public comments. I'll just go ahead and read them to you. Please bear with me. Some of them are quite lengthy. I reviewed the documentation for the engineering and traffic study listed in the agenda for tonight's council meeting. The study proposes reducing the speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour for the section of Hueneme Road from the Port Gates to Ventura Road. This is a good idea. It will improve public safety and reduce the noise and vibrations from heavy traffic, which is highly problematic for any of the homes located along Hueneme Road. The study also recommends leaving the current speed limit from Ventura Road to J Street at 35 miles per hour. That is a reasonable speed limit for cars, but is too fast for trucks. Years of heavy truck traffic have damaged the roadbed on Hueneme Road to the point that the homes located next to Hueneme Road are subject to constant noise and vibration caused by accelerating trucks and a compromised roadbed. When heavily laden trucks accelerate over the compromised roadbed, it causes the homes to shake as if there were small earthquakes. This happens hundreds of times a day and threatens the structural integrity of the homes that line Wainimi Road. This section of the roadbed was resurfaced about 15 years ago. I don't remember the exact date. The new surface successfully reduced noise and vibration until it became compromised. I have not been able to get a straight answer about when the road will be repaired and resurfaced. In 2019, the Director of Public Works, Don Villafana, acknowledged that the road was compromised and told me that it would be resurfaced in the spring of 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen. Reducing the speed limit for truck traffic from 35 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour between Ventura Road and J Street would significantly reduce noise and vibration. It would add less than 30 seconds to the average truck trip. It would also reduce pollution from hundreds of trucks spewing out diesel exhaust, save fuel, and reduce carbon emissions. The other major issue at hand is public safety. In the last few years, the intersection of Wainimi and Ventura has been the location of multiple serious collisions and near misses. I have personally witnessed truck drivers running the red lights, talking on their cell phones, and exceeding the speed limit. One of these drivers nearly killed my son and granddaughter when he ran a red light. We all remember the horrific wreck caused by an intoxicated truck driver with a suspended license who ran through a red light traveling at 50 miles per hour and crashed into several innocent drivers. This would not have happened if the speed limit were reduced and Port Hueneme Police Department enforced it. In closing, I would like to ask that the speed limit for trucks on Hueneme Road be reduced to 25 miles per hour within the city limits. I would also like to be given accurate information on when the city plans to resurface Hueneme Road. Thanks, David Scrivener, President of the Surfside Village HOA.
If I could just quickly, I did respond to that email, but for any member of the public who's also wants to know when the street's scheduled to be paved, it's currently scheduled to be paved in next fiscal year. The 24 to 25 budget includes paving Hueneme Road.
The next one says, Dear Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and staff, I'm really happy to see that the city is finally addressing the traffic issues in the city. I wish to share my thoughts on 3 items featured in the agenda, all of which bear significance in this regard. I will only read the comment that's pertaining to this item right now. I wholeheartedly endorse the adoption of the recommendations. I am particularly pleased to note the proposal to lower the speed limit on Hueneme Road between Market and Ventura. The persistent issue of speeding trucks in that area necessitates this change. And that's from Joan Tharp. The next one is City Council. I am a longtime resident and HOA board member at Beachport Villas, which is between Hueneme Road and Miranda Park. Myself and many of my neighbors are glad to hear about the recommendations to lower the speed limit on Hueneme Road to 25 between Market Street and Ventura Road. I hope that at some point that same lower speed limit can be extended on Hueneme Road from Ventura Road to J Street as well. There is a lot of fast-moving traffic in that area, especially when the trucks heading to the port catch a green light at Surfside Drive. There has been several serious accidents that I'm aware of over the years in this mostly residential area. Thank you, Jeffrey Scarberry. And the last written comment, good evening, City Council. As I read through the staff report, I found that the staff report has a lot of discrepancies and questionable decision-making. It appears that no one proofread the report prior to adding it in tonight's City Council agenda. The staff report recommendations do not match the ordinance that is set to be voted on for speed changes to city streets. The visual attachment of a colorful map, Attachment 1, is also presented wrong for current and recommended speeds, as the Pleasant Valley Road section is showing 40 miles per hour. Also, the southbound and northbound Ventura Road from Pleasant Valley to Hueneme Road is showing a different speed for each direction. How can CVC Section 627 and 22358.6 subsection B and CAMUTCD Section 2B.13 related to residential density be used for changing the speed of Hueneme Road and not for Pleasant Valley Road or Bard Road, which both have high residential and have elementary schools on the street? Pleasant Valley Road, west of Ventura, has no bicycle considerations as there is no bike lanes or posted signage that bicycles share the road. East of Ventura Road, there are marked bicycle lanes. Hueneme Road, Market to Ventura, was previously posted at 35 miles per hour. When the city conducted the last study, it was lowered to 30 miles per hour. As a data collection was the count of average speed for vehicles traveling that section, The new vehicles driving out of the port have speed regulators on them, which maxes out the speeds they can travel, which is usually around 30 miles per hour. The traveling new vehicles out of the port skew the data on the 85 percentile of vehicle speeds traveled in this section. Was the considerations of other traffic engineering review and recommendation considered? The city should collect a few other traffic engineers' opinions that use data collection and speed radar in making justified decisions. The two studies in tonight's report were conducted by the same traffic engineer working at different consulting firms for 2020 and 2023. A strong recommendation to vote down the ordinance as it is currently presented due to inconsistent fact statements within the staff report and supporting engineering traffic reports survey. Additionally, it would be great to get this item as a presentation for the council and the public to see how the traffic engineer conducted his study, as well for the public to comment on the recommended changes. Thank you, Fred Gonzalez. And I just want to check Zoom real quick just to make sure, and there are no other public comments.
May I ask the city attorney if we have any questions, any more questions, can we ask now? Or do I close the public hearing and then ask questions, or can we not ask questions?
Council can ask questions. The main reason for having a public hearing with respect to first reading of an ordinance is so that all questions and whatnot can be created for a record in the event of a future challenge.
Okay. I had a question. Can we reduce the speed just for trucks? You know, between some of those areas, say between Pleasant Valley and Wainimi Road on Ventura Road, as mentioned in the public comment.
This might be something the city attorney might be able to answer also, but I'm not aware of anything allowed by the state vehicle code to single out trucks or certain types of trucks on local roadway streets. If a truck is allowed by law, then it has to follow the same speed limits. The only place where trucks have separate speed limits are on highways, and that's specifically set in the vehicle code.
I would tend to agree. The vehicle code is a very difficult thing to regulate locally. It specifically preempts many local regulations. The other caution that I would have is typically governments are prevented from doing things on an arbitrary and capricious basis. And so the standards enunciated by the vehicle code for being able to set prima facie speed limits have to do with not obstructing the flow of traffic and speeds that are reasonably safe. And so as long as those two are followed, setting a variable speed for different types of vehicles, I don't think that we have the justification for it, nor do I believe that the vehicle code would allow such a finding.
I also want to mention that I did notice that the maps were labeled incorrectly or switched out on the packet.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
And I think I think it's appropriate to ask our engineer to speak to the questions about the way the streets are labeled in the staff report versus the resolution.
Mayor, members of the council, there is an error on the map. For Pleasant Valley Road, it should have been 35 green instead of 40 orange. As far as the difference between the resolution, I'll let Charles answer that because I did not prepare the resolution myself. There were also other questions raised by the comments related to methodology. I think their comments are they're misunderstanding the vehicle code and how speed limits can be set. So for instance, we can lower the speed limit by the 85th percentile only a certain amount. And if you have a safety issue related to bicycles and pedestrians and residential density and collisions, you still can't lower it any further than if you only have any one of those. So you can use any or all of them to reduce it from the 85th, but you can't reduce it 5 for every one of them. And I think that's kind of what their comments were generated at, was you reduced it for this one, but what about these other? Charles, can you talk about the resolution?
Oh, okay. I'm not aware of the discrepancy in the resolution that you describe. What is the discrepancy?
The discrepancy I noticed was on the labeling of the maps and maybe the coloring, but I'm not sure about the public comment.
Oh,
That wasn't me.
I think there are
well, maybe one simple way to proceed, because uh, would be adopting with the streets identified in the staff report, and then we can double check it and make any corrections if we need to. But the streets in the staff report were the correct streets. If there is a typo on the ordinance, we can address that. So.
yeah, we can correct the map if it's wrong. It looks like we found one discrepancy.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the color issue, that one side of the street is one color and the other side of the street is another. And that's done intentionally because one side is going to have a faster speed and the other side will be slower.
That's correct. Like, for instance,
Islands Boulevard.
Channel Islands Boulevard will have westbound will be 40 miles per hour and eastbound will be 45. And the reason for that is we have more traffic, and Tom can speak to the methodology there.
I'm not sure if the light's on, if you can hear me, or the light's off. The way the speed limits are set is you're required, if there is a raised median, that it's two separate streets. So we have to actually measure those and conduct the speed survey different for each direction. If there's a raised median, they're considered two separate streets. That's why we have, some of them have two speed limits and some only have one.
Okay. Councilmember McQueen?
I just had a quick question. Port Hueneme Road, Market Street to Ventura, says the existing is 30, speed limit is 30, and changing it to 25. This is going back to the comments about truck speeding, going in and coming out of the port. What is the speed limit across Ventura Road, Hueneme Road, but across? Is 35. My question, currently, across Ventura Road going
35.
35, okay. So my question is back to, and I know we're going to be talking about some other traffic-related topics later. And I'm asking the question because of the comment about trucks slowing down as well. And so the speed limit is 25. I think the issue we have now, that trucks are speeding, right? And so not that moving it to a lower mileage is going to stop them from speeding. So just really want to make sure that we're thinking about what we need to do to stop the speeding. Lowering the miles per hour may not stop the speeding. So what are we going to do to stop the speeding? And I think we need to make sure that our police officers are out there giving tickets if tickets need to be given to help slow down the traffic. I just don't believe changing the mileage because they're speeding now where the mileage is. So we have to do something else. And I know that's not a street we're going to put bumps on. Well, I don't think so. So we really got to do the other things, and we're going to talk about that a little later.
We're going to work with our police department with enforcement, and I think the city manager is going to speak to how we're going to do that in the next agenda item.
Let me just add, one of the important parts about enforcement is if an officer and they write that ticket, what are the courts going to uphold? And what we found here in Ventura County is the courts tend to like something around 9 miles an hour or higher over that speed limit. So as we get the posted speed limits down, it allows reasonable enforcement at a speed that now that they can't enforce that 30 miles an hour because people are going 35 or 36, and the courts are saying, boy, that's a gray area because of the inconsistency of how speedometers work and things. So it does help on the enforcement side with them being able to get the appropriate convictions when you go to court.
Yeah, on the issue of truck traffic, I wonder if we could outreach to the port and see what kind of other things that we could do, because it's my understanding that those Chiquita banana trucks are per load. And so I think a guy told me one time that they get $850 for 40 loads. And they have to come from the port, connect their trailer, drive all the way to 2nd Street, right near the Oxnard City Hall. And then they unload the truck, and then they pick up another one, come back. And so it comes out to like $23.75 per load. And you can understand why they're speeding, because that's a real tight margin for a truck driver, especially with the price of gas these days. So I don't know how we go about that, but maybe we could have that conversation with the port and try and come up with a risk management program to address the truck traffic, because we see it all the time. I've seen skid marks through the intersection. I've seen trucks run red lights like blatantly very recently, a matter of fact. So wanted to offer that.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, we're concluding public input and questions. I will now close the public hearing, the time being 7:24 p.m. We have a recommendation before us to adopt resolution entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, approving the 2023 Engineering and Traffic Survey Update and adopting the recommended speed limits set forth therein, and introduce for first reading, read by title only, waive further reading of an ordinance amending Article 3, Chapter 3, Part A, Division 15 of the Port Hueneme Municipal Code." May I have a motion and a second?
Clarifying point, we're referencing the staff report recommendations.
Yeah,
not-
that's
right?
what I was going to ask. Thank you. Is if we could make that note that it's the streets included in the staff report, just because we didn't get a chance to double check to make sure that there isn't an issue, but the ones in the staff report are the ones that are correct, so we'll make a match.
And to the extent there is a Scrivener's error, it will be identified at the next business item where the ordinance is attached.
Did you say Scrivener error?
Not that Scrivener.
Not that Scrivener? It's his fault.
Okay.
Move to approve?
Would anyone like to entertain a discussion before we vote?
second?
No,
Yeah. No?
Second? I'll
I'm not
second.
gonna say.
Oh, I thought I heard you say second.
I'll second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll? Vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember McQueen Lejeune,
Yes.
and Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're moving on now to business items. Item number 9, speed cushion policy and related traffic calming options. Will staff please present the report?
Yes, thank you. And similarly, just another tool where, we were talking about some of them on the last item, but another tool, because lowering the speed limits is good, but there's still more work to be done. Another tool is adoption of a speed cushion policy. The city previously had a policy, or did not have a policy that allowed speed cushions. However, the city had installed some speed cushions back in 2020 as sort of a test project. We've gotten generally good response on those speed cushions. And so in the meantime, we've been working on a policy that will allow speed cushions with specific criteria. The criteria includes basically 5 points. First, they would be installed on streets that have a speed limit of 25 miles per hour. Second, the street would have no more than 2 travel lanes just because of the size of the cushions. Third, the street would be a residential street near or adjoining a school zone, park, or senior housing. Fourth, a review of traffic accident data would also be conducted under the review. And fifth, other speed calming measures such as stop signs or other signage would also be considered and evaluated prior to installation of speed cushions. Basically with the idea that speed cushions wouldn't just be the automatic default. We'd look at other things such as stop signs as well. And so the city has installed those and developed those criteria. We are recommending that we adopt the formal policy that would allow for speed cushions to be considered and evaluated. And in this year's budget, we have funding for the next set of speed cushions. And the map of the additional locations, I believe, is included. I'll ask Charles to speak to that. Or actually, Fred, are you going to speak to that?
To the
To
additional
the-
areas or
yeah,
where we
the
have them currently? Well, we'll kind of back up a little bit and give, first of all, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council, audience. Just to expand a little bit more on what the city managers indicated. Right now, the map indicates 7 areas where they've already been placed. There are some additional areas that are currently up to be evaluated, which is the area of 6th Street and 6th Place, and then also Bryce Canyon in the area of Sunkist Elementary School. Since the beginning of the program, when it started out as a pilot program, we've received a lot of positive feedback. We haven't had to go back and replace or remove any of the ones that have been placed out in service. It's obviously, as you've been hearing, it's one other tool that can be used to help try and get speeds under control. But also with that, you're going to get people that find it an inconvenience. So it's trying to balance out how we put all of these things together where we can get the best effect, but also not have a negative reaction from the community. One specific area that I'm sure you all were aware of is the Panoma Street neighborhood, where we started to paint the red curb because it was a recommendation for line of sight and safety at those intersections. It was a very negative feedback that we got. The city manager decided to go ahead and pause all of that and ask us to go back to a traffic engineer and see if there's some other sort of combination that we could institute with either signage, maybe it still may be necessary to paint red curb. It's going to be a part of evaluating, seeing if there are other options available or alternatives to go ahead and make these places safe for everybody, not just the pedestrians, but the driving community as well. So we're going to be looking at that. Again, as I mentioned, it may not be that we can eliminate red curbs, but we want to make sure that we're taking notice and also try and accommodate parking problems. In that particular area, we have a lot of multiple family units. We have a lot of vehicles that are parked out there regularly. We don't have the ability to park on the Navy side of the street on Panoma. So there's other things that we can certainly look at. And some of these other items, along with these speed cushions, are things that we're hoping as a whole will make a difference.
I think that's really the key is, again, it's just another tool in a situation like Panoma where we went out and looked and there really is a lack of parking. And so this is just another tool that'll let us try to address the concerns that we're hearing there in place of doing things like the red curb. So, so the item is recommending the approval of that speed cushion policy. Our budget this year includes funding for some additional speed cushions. I had thought we had put those in the report, but I think I had misread that.
$95,000.
So it's $95,000 included in this year's budget, but adopting the policy will allow us to evaluate the streets that they're being requested on under that criteria and then approve and place speed cushions with that funding. So.
Does council have any questions for staff?
I'm a little confused on the red curb issue. 155 feet of red curb on Panoma and Clara. What bothered me is, what are we, Is it okay to talk about red curbs right now?
Yeah, it's actually, this item includes traffic calming options. And we specifically noted that we were looking at other options and not looking, or looking at other options that would replace the red curb plan.
So on the intersection of Panoma and Clara, the reasoning, the rationale is we're going to paint 155 feet of red curb to improve line of sight. But if you go to that corner, you can't see through it. There's a big sign and there's bushes on both opposite corners. So you can't see regardless of whether there's a car parked there or not. You can't see. So in my judgment, it just seems that's a mistake. And it seems to me that it would be better to put a four-way stop sign there, because I've often wondered over the years, like, it's a pretty heavily traveled street. And I think a stop sign a four-way stop would be much more calming. And so, and then of course the other issue is that the parking, there's just not enough parking. And, I think we need to look at maybe moving the bus stop over to San Pedro or other issues like that so that we could maintain adequate parking. I don't even know if there's adequate parking there. But one thing I do know is that we can open up San Pedro and allow people to park there. And I think we should. And we've made special accommodations for the port for some of their events to have parking there. And we heard, and then again, over at the other side of the base, there isn't that 15-foot cushion, and there's very sensitive buildings very close to the fence line. So I think we need to consider that.
And I can speak to that just quickly, that I wasn't here when the San Pedro parking issue was discussed, so I didn't get a chance to talk to the base about that yet. But I do think we're hearing consistently from that neighborhood that they're just out of parking. And I think it may be worth a conversation with the base at this point to go back to them and say, hey, we were trying to accommodate this, but we're running into these issues, and now we're having line of sight issues that we can't address, So that can be a discussion that we can go back and try to work through with the base. Because I do think it's just part of the general, it feels like we can't give up one more spot in that neighborhood. Like it's stretched us too thin, so.
I just want us all to be cognizant of the fact that, the base didn't want us to put a dispensary there. And of course it was done. And so, it seems that it's our call. And I think the needs of our residents are very needy right now for parking spots. And again, if you go to the other side to Silver Strand Beach, parking's a nightmare over there. It's not even close to the issues that, it is very close. We're probably competing, but I think Silver Strand might be a little harder parking than, and they park right up along the fence on Victoria, like literally have 6 inches of space between their fence and the car. And so I just hope that we could help our residents out by getting as many parking spots as we can over there.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Camarillo, would you be able to pull up the map just so that everybody can see where the current speed cushions are located and which ones are proposed?
Just give me 1 second.
Okay. I guess I have another question. Is there a list that's being taken by the public of where the next speed cushions would be?
I'll leave Charles to answer that question.
Hello? Oh, yeah, okay. So I'd like to clarify, the map only shows where speed cushions have been installed. We have put together this criteria because we've received an overwhelming request for speed cushions, and we can't install speed cushions everywhere. So we came up with this criteria, this policy. We don't want to impede response times for our law enforcement, And we put together this criteria, and we need to evaluate any proposed locations. Fred Camarillo mentioned a few locations, but through this criteria, we intend to evaluate those areas. Not necessarily that we will put them there, but to go through this criteria and evaluate if it's warranted there. Because we received requests for speed cushions on Pleasant Valley. Some people have said Channel Islands, and we know realistically we can't do things like that. So this criteria that you guys are looking at is for us to make that evaluation determination. So the map presented before you are existing speed cushion installations that met the criteria of the pilot program, but we've expanded that. So we were primarily focused with senior housing and schools and areas where children congregate, but we've expanded that criteria to be included in that attachment. But we looked at other cities and what they were doing and other professional organizations like the Traffic Engineers Institute, and we found that our policy was in line with what other cities have been doing.
Looking to one of the comments made earlier about how dropping the speed limits has multiple effects, and one of them is the policy includes the requirement that the street be, or I believe it does, correct me if I'm wrong, that it be 25 miles per hour or less. So now some of those streets that we're proposing reducing the speeds on can actually could potentially qualify for speed cushions. So again, just how all these items kind of work together to try to help us address specific issues.
I'm going to apologize before I even ask the question. I thought in my reading of the agenda on my iPad, I can't find it now in the binder, but there was some verbiage about we have the $95,000 in the budget, but that they can be paid for by public or private after the money's gone. Did I read that?
Yeah, in the actual policy, yes, I believe.
Can you just say, describe what that means? And what do you mean by it can, once our 95,000 is expended, then how would someone pay for that? Someone else confirm that I read that?
I'm double checking. I don't recall that, but I'm trying to double check. Yeah, the staff report notes that we have $95,000 in the budget. We kept that in the budget this year when we did the CIP review a couple weeks back, specifically because we knew this was a hot topic that we were working to bring this policy for. I don't recall that including language that we would take any funding from any other source to do
Maybe
them.
that was in another.
Councilmember McQueen-Lejeune, other cities do offer that. In our research, we did find that other cities had that in their policy, where they would allow neighborhoods to crowdfund it. We did not put that in our policy.
I think at one point I might have sent an email saying, here's what some other agencies have done like a while back,
Okay.
and maybe because it kind of sounds familiar, but I don't think we ended up including that
Okay.
just because we
Thank
figured
you.
it opens a can of worms.
So I have a question. In all this study that's been going on, was there anything discussed or looked at to reduce the street racing donuts happening on Surfside area?
Yes, and I would say we're still looking at it. We haven't, we were hoping that some of these things help, including the motorcycle officer that we're planning to talk about soon. And we're still looking at other options. We did get a couple of kind of high level ideas, but nothing ready to present or nothing ready to install when we actually worked through some of the ideas and saw some problems with them. So it's something we're still looking at and something that we will probably end up bringing back. But again, looking at doing some things in the meantime that should help, even if it doesn't completely solve the problem. So
Really quick, on the speed cushion policy procedures 2E, says currently City Council has set aside funding for speed cushion installation that meet the above criteria. However, there is no guarantee that such funding will be continued. Approved projects may be privately funded. I knew I
Yeah, it
saw
is in there.
Page 1 of the, yeah, 2E.
Yeah, I think I would recommend taking it out at this point. I think we had talked about that early on, and I thought we had taken it out, but we have $95,000 this year in the budget. I think we proposed doing $95,000 next year, and I think that between those 2 years, you can see our map here, and
Could we lower the map, please?
and that's already what's installed. And then if we install 2 more rounds, I think we're gonna have a pretty good handle on the speed cushions. So I don't think we probably had gotten that from one of those other policies we looked at. That I know, like I had looked at the city of Philadelphia, and I imagine that they probably just get a huge number of requests and do end up having to tell people that if you're willing to pay for it, you can have it. I don't think we have that same issue. So I would just recommend we remove that sentence.
All right. Are there any public comments regarding this item?
There are public comments. First one is from Macario Simon. Mr. Camarillo, if you can step to the side for a moment, just so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members and the public, and Mr. Camarillo for evaluating this situation. I'm here to express my concerns regarding the city painting the red curb on the corner of my property by B and Panoma. It used to be convenient for my wife just to get out of the vehicle and be able to walk straight to our front door. It is now more hardship for my wife because parking space is no longer available due to the red curb. She has difficulties walking just to get to our front door. The red curb is the length of almost 2 compact vehicles, and now our curbside, we lost 2 parking spaces. Parking was difficult to find even before. Now it is nearly impossible. It would have to stop my vehicle on the street just for my wife to get off to get to the front door. Now it's trying to find parking, and this is an everyday situation. It is difficult leaving knowing that someone is going to park in any of the available space that they can find. We didn't receive any notification that this was going to take place, and it's frustrating that we must go through just to find parking. I have been a homeowner in this community for over 37 years. I have seen Hueneme grow in most of the changes that the city has made throughout the years. I remember when semi-trucks would drive through Panoma every 10, 30 minutes a day. A few years later, the city rerouted the trucks to Hueneme Road. That was a huge change. Years later, the city decided to paint red on the same curve today for a transit bus stop in front of our house. That didn't last very long after the bus hit our 2 vehicles in 2 separate incidents. So the city relocated the bus stop to another location. That was a big relief. What I don't understand is why I used to be able to park my 5th wheel, which I no longer have, for over 15 years on my grass and on my property until I was about to get a ticket from the parking officer for parking my vehicle 4 feet on my own grass and my property. I am a homeowner, and there is an ordinance. Is there an ordinance that prohibits me from parking on my property? Now I don't even have the option of doing that. In the past 6 months or so, parking has still been a problem for the residents that live in the close vicinity. It is even more difficult now that the curb has been painted red. When the street sweeper is scheduled for that day, you will not find parking because other residents from the next block or 6 or 8 houses down the street have been taking parking space. It is not fair for those who live in the area who are not able to park their vehicles and taking away the extra space by placing red at curb and solving curb is not solving the problem. Instead, the city needs to put stop signs in the designated areas because cars are speeding through Sonoma every day. That's why we have these accidents. I love Port Hueneme, and I hope that the city will take this issue seriously and take my suggestions into consideration by putting stop signs instead of further limiting our only scarce parking. I am sure the neighborhood community agrees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tracy J. After Tracy, it'll be you, Mr. Scrivener.
Hello, my name's Tracy. I've spoke with you guys before. I'm again also speaking about the red curbs. I wanted to further the same speaking as everybody is, that the fact that we don't have very much parking in our area. Over the years, you've given us the bus, which means on down Sonoma, we have 6 bus stops. That means, or 3 bus stops, which means there's 6 30-foot already taking away our parking. Down or Pleasant Valley, we have several red curbs that are inconsistent with the same visibility. So it's kind of confusing to understand why some area has a big, long stretch of no parking and the opposite side has nothing, but you go the block over and there's some parking. I noticed that the Emerald Perspective has only a few feet of red and then the rest of it is allowable green, even though their business sits out further than any of our homes on the opposite side. If you go down Sonoma, like the gentleman said, there's several new red 30-foot strips that's taking away all of our parking, but it's really not solving the issue. If a car is traveling at a distance of 25 miles per hour, which nobody does, you still need more than approximately 150 feet in order to stop properly to avoid a collision if anybody pulls out as oncoming traffic as you're trying to pass through. I also recommend to move the bus, even though it's now on Sonoma, it may not have been where it was at the other location. But if you move the bus either down San Pedro or move it out of our neighborhood altogether into Ventura Road would make more sense to us, because at least then we could retain some of that parking area that currently we can't use. Sonoma has the bus stops, it has all the red curbs, and then we have fire hydrants about every other block as well, so you can't park there either. So I'm just asking if you guys can rescind or find an alternate source for helping reduce the speed to make exiting streets more safe, like stop signs or speed bumps or traffic control, because painting the curb red is kind of giving anybody a false sense of security that you can pull out safely. If the car is speeding down 50 miles per hour, you'll end up being hit anyways. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you'll rescind the current action. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Mayor, could I just
Yes,
quickly note a
of
couple
course.
things? One is, so we actually have, the bus stop is not the city's bus stop. It's, I believe that one is Gold Coast Transit District's bus stop. So we actually had, when we started to see parking issues, we did reach out and we did ask if those can be adjusted. And so they were analyzing those, but ultimately that won't be necessarily the city's decision of whether those stops can be moved. But we've started that conversation. And then second, on the red curb, just our presentation focused on the speed cushion policy, but as a secondary item, we were recommending, because of those concerns, that we seek alternative options other than red curb. And so I just want to make sure that we did state that, because we may have missed it when we talked about the speed cushion policy. So, thank you.
Mr. Scrivener?
Ready? Okay. Thank you. I came here to make 2 comments tonight, and the first one has to do with speed bumps. Here's some feedback about how they've worked in the Bolker neighborhood. My father had a house there for many years. He passed away, and we remodeled it and rented it out to a family. Before the speed bumps went in, they were afraid to let their kids play in the front yard. It's got a big driveway. The mother wouldn't let them out there because there are so many cars racing up and down, with the loud mufflers and all that crazy stuff that goes on, that she had to keep them in the house. since those speed bumps went in, it's a different neighborhood. It's quiet. The kids are playing out in the streets and or out in the sidewalks and stuff like that again. It made a huge difference. So I don't know. Obviously, you can't put speed bumps every place, but I just want to let you know in the Bolker neighborhood, there's a dramatic positive change there. And I want to thank you for it. It's made a big difference. Okay. Second thing really has to do with parking in general. Because of all the state mandates about more housing and not requiring any place to park, this is going to be a huge problem going forward. I guess the idea is eventually to have electric cars picking people up by robots and driving them places, but that's not going to happen in my lifetime, I don't think. In the meantime, we got more people, more cars because of the high housing prices. People are doubling or tripling up. For example, in the Bolker neighborhood, the only place you can park is in the park, which is, you're not supposed to park there, but it's not enforced because there's no place for these people to park. So that's what's coming to all of us. And you know, as the president of the Surfside Village Homeowners Association, all I got to do is look across the street at the Surfside Hotel, which you guys were forced to go along with, where there's completely inadequate parking over there. Some of those units don't even have parking. The one bedrooms, you're allowed to have 3 people in those places. There's one parking place. It's going to be a mess. So I don't know what the answer is, except that we're headed for more and more of this and more cars and fewer places to park. And good luck figuring it out, because I can't. So thank you.
We have 2 written public comments. Item 9, with regard to traffic calming measures, I urge the consideration of B Street between Ventura Road and Pomona. Reckless speeds at the intersection of Ventura Road and B Street pose a significant danger, especially considering the proximity of Casa Pacifica, where frequent loading and unloading activities occur. While I do have reservations about sight distance, curb painting, as it reduces available parking, I believe the corners of 3rd and B Streets merit attention. The visibility challenges when driving south on 3rd Street and turning left or right onto B Street are evident, particularly for vehicles just turning in from Ventura Road. There is a fire hydrant on the northeast corner, so even painting the curb red there would help. And that's from Joan Tharp. And then, good afternoon, my name is Julie Gonzalez, and I have been a Wainimi resident for over 30 years and live on the 1100 block of North 7th Street. Our street has changed dramatically since the speed cushions were installed on Park Avenue during the spring of 2023, which, by the way, was a great idea. However, vehicles are now driving at unsafe speeds because 7th Street is the straight thoroughfare between Park Avenue and Bard Road. So many cars are now trying to avoid the speed bumps just so that they can connect to Bard Road quicker. My concern is for the safety of the many children and residents that live on our street. Our neighborhood also has several daycare businesses, and many of the children are walking to and from school. I hope that the city manager and council members will put our street on the list to install speed cushions in the very near future. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Julie Vardy Gonzalez. And sorry, I just want to check Zoom really quickly. No public comments, so we're good. Thank you.
All right, that's it with public comments. The recommendation is to approve and adopt the citywide speed cushion policy and receive an update on related traffic calming options, including staff seeking alternative options other than red curb in Panoma Street neighborhoods due to concerns. I don't know if one of my questions was answered. Do we have a list of the next places that are going to be where we're going to be adding speed cushions?
No, we don't have a final list. We have areas that we're going to evaluate. That's what we have. So nothing determined yet.
Okay, such as like the public comment we just heard, right?
Right. So
Public comments.
we have received many comments for their neighborhoods. So we're going to look at those areas. But we don't have a set place yet.
Thank you, Mr. Cable. All right, may I have a motion in a second?
Move to approve?
With changes,
With
right?
changes.
With recommended changes.
With the changes, removing the language about privately funded speed cushions.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can you please take a vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
All right, item number 10, authorization to purchase BMW police motorcycle to reinstate motorcycle enforcement. Will staff please present the report?
Excuse me, Mayor. May I take a quick break? Restroom break?
Yes, you may take a quick restroom break.
Do we want to take a 5-minute recess?
Yes, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you, everyone, for your patience, especially Commander Alberson. All right, we're gonna move on to item number 10, authorization to purchase BMW police motorcycle to reinstate motorcycle enforcement. And at the same time, I'm gonna ask if they can close the door. Thank you. Will staff please present the report?
Yeah, and again, just another tool, and it's come up a couple times, is being able to pair the enforcement with reduced speed limits and with speed cushions and things like that. It's just another tool that we're using to try to help address this issue. And Commander Alverson has prepared a presentation with some traffic information and some data. So I will turn it over to him to go through that presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, members of staff, members of the public. The item before you is authorization to purchase a BMW police motorcycle to reinstate motorcycle enforcement. What I have is a short presentation. Chief Federico is on remotely, and he or city manager after my presentation could address any issues pertaining to the details of the purchase of the motorcycle. One of Chief's first orders of business when he came on board back in June was to task me with doing a comprehensive analysis of our crash data, prepare a presentation, and bring it before you in conjunction with this item. We want to make sure that we did our due diligence and make sure that the numbers we were looking at actually justifies having a motor and a motor officer, and so we've done that. The data comes from SWITRS, which is a statewide integrated traffic recording system. We're required to report all of our traffic collisions to the state, as are other police agencies throughout the state. So the numbers I'm going to present are from 2011 to 2022. And the reason for that is SWITRS reports only go back to 2011. And then they are typically about 7 to 9 months behind. And so any 2023 numbers would be provisional and wouldn't be comprehensive. And so I'm pretty confident that what I'm going to present to you from 2011 to 2022 are solid numbers. I've looked at them numerous times. I've compared them to our internal RMS system. I've discussed them with Sergeant Bates, who was a traffic officer here, and we're both in agreement that these numbers are accurate. Should I just point it at the screen or that one? Okay, and so what I did is I took the numbers that pertain to fatal and injury collisions. And the reason why I did that is property damage only collisions, also known as fender benders, and private property collisions only require that the drivers exchange information. And so we're not really capturing the number of collisions that we would normally as if we know a report's been taken. And so we're going to just concentrate on fatal and injury traffic collisions. And so from 2011 to 2022, we had 561 crashes. 14 of those were fatal. That's 2% of our total. 15% were severe injuries. That's basically major injuries. It's a hospitalization, ambulance transport, et cetera. 146 were visible injuries. Those are things like contusions, broken bones, cuts, things like that. That was 26% of our total. And then complaint of pain, it was 386 collisions. That's almost 70% of our total. Those are things like whiplash injuries, airbag deployment injuries, soreness from the impact of the collision, things like that. Those typically result, though, in serious damage to the vehicle, and they could present long-term problems for the people that are involved. We can go to the next slide. So this is just a pie chart of the same data that I just gave you to just give you kind of a different perspective on it. So you can see the complaint of pain injuries are by far the largest percentage. So what I did too is I put together a chart of the number of crashes per day, of week per time. And what this will help us do is this will help us figure out if the motorcycle is approved, when it makes the most sense to deploy so we get the largest effect of having that person out there. As you can see, so it's a 7-day week in 3-hour increments over a 24-hour period. And by far, our largest number of collisions is 28% occur between 3 p.m. and 5:59 p.m. And the number one day of the week is Thursday, and that was 31 collisions. We can go to the next slide. So what this slide is just basically shows what deployment would make sense for the motor. And I know that risk management was brought up prior. And so looking at this data, what this tells me is that the times of the day that make the most sense to deploy a motor are when it's light outside, it's daytime. Nothing says you can't have a motor out at night, but obviously it's a lot safer to have them out in daylight hours. So I think we have a pretty good grasp from the data we have right now that if the motor's approved, we can, once training and all that's done, we can hit the ground running and we're gonna know when to put that motor out there when it's gonna have the biggest effect on our collisions. Go to the next slide. So I also analyzed our top 5 primary collision factors. And so what this is typically a vehicle code violation that was the cause of the collision. There's a reason they call them collisions and not accidents. So you can see unsafe speed was by far the largest primary collision factor. That's 180, that's 32%. Right-of-way violations, 117, 21%. Improper turning movement, those are things like unsafe lane changes. So you see someone cut someone off, that's an improper turning movement. 48, 9%. DUIs were 48 at 9%. And traffic signals and signs violations, that's 41 and that's 7%. So look at this data. What this tells me is that these are all primary collision factors that could be mitigated by having a motorcycle out there doing traffic enforcement, especially the speed. And we're going to get to a slide later on in the presentation where I'll speak to why I believe that is the case. So we can go to the next slide. So this is a point map of all of our crashes from 2011 to 2022. And you can see that the high corridors are Channel Islands Boulevard, Ventura Road, Hueneme Road, Pleasant Valley, and it looks like Bard may have some there. All of these corridors can be worked with radar. And you heard the traffic engineer speak to, and it was in the staff report, to the engineering survey that allows us to go out and legally enforce speed limits with radar. And so all of these areas can be worked by a motorcycle officer with radar. And we have some specific conditions in our city that are unique, and that is that it's very difficult to do traffic enforcement on Channel Islands Boulevard and Ventura Road in a regular patrol unit. Not impossible, but it's difficult. And Sergeant Bates can attest to the fact from when he was a motor along Ventura Road, there are only a few places where you can get tucked in good enough to be safe, but also to get out into traffic quick enough to actually catch a violator. And a motorcycle can do that. And so I think with those corridors having a majority of our crashes, it makes sense, in my opinion, to have a motorcycle out there. We can go to the next slide. And so for fatal crashes, I was able to actually go back further than 2011 because we don't have to rely on just SWTR's data because our fatal traffic accidents are assigned to an investigator. And so we were able to actually pull those numbers, and I'm confident that those numbers are accurate. And so we had a motorcycle officer from roughly July of 2006 to December of 2013. It was actually suspended roughly in about July of 2013 and then completely ended in December of 2013. And then we had no motorcycle from 2014 to 2022. And so comparing our fatal traffic collisions, we had 7 when we had a motor out there, average of 1 per year. We've had 10 total, average of 1.3 per year. That's a 43% increase in fatal crashes. But when you look at fatal crashes, one thing you have to remember is they're fatals. And 9 times out of 10, if there are passengers in a fatal collision, those people are going to be injured as well. And so the 10 fatal crashes that we did have resulted in 11 injuries and 10 deaths. Next slide. And so what these are our California Office of Transportation Safety rankings. So the first number, and we're talking about the one in red, first number is the Port Hueneme rank. The second number is the number of similar sized cities in our group. The lower the first number, the worse our OTS ranking. And so if you go to the OTS website and you look at the rankings, there are going to be a list of rankings like the age of the driver, whether they're over 21, under 21, whether pedestrians are involved, bicyclists, motorcycles. The reason that exists is because OTS collects that information for grant purposes. For purposes of us making an analysis on a motorcycle program, what I felt the 2 important rankings was the total fatal and injury collisions, and then the total fatal and injury collisions that were speed related, because speed was our top primary collision factor. And so if you look at our rankings and just speed related, we were 28th out of 101 cities, 15 out of 102 cities, 16 out of 103 cities, and then 53 out of 103 cities. So this information is only available from 2017 to 2020. So in 2018 and 19, what that means is, say in 2018, that means only 14 cities out of our group sampling was worse than Port Hueneme in the OTS ranking. We have made some improvements. I can't say definitively why we made those improvements. Anecdotally, I can say that probably what happened was that was about the time we really started getting a lot of complaints about traffic. And so we did step up traffic enforcement. So that is one possible explanation. I can't say that's the only one. So we have made some improvements, but we don't have the 21, 22, and 23 numbers yet. My opinion is I think that having a motorcycle out there could help us reduce fatal traffic collisions, injury traffic collisions, but also could help us maybe improve these OTS rankings. But having a motor officer also gives us the opportunity to have someone that's going to be able to now submit for grants in maybe some of those other areas, the DUIs, pedestrian, motorcycles, bicycles, and that'll be someone that then will be collecting this information on a regular basis, and we won't have to then do it like we did at this time where we bring it all at once. It'll be an ongoing thing. And so with that, I can turn it over to City Manager and Chief, and then if there are any questions, we'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I believe Chief Federico is joining us via Zoom from a training, and so we'll see if he wants to add anything at this time.
Yes, Chief.
They're capable of making those. Bridges, traffic enforcement, and obvious. There are increased mobile situations where basic mode is able to be just explained. Training we can, and we purchase the best safety equipment we can for our officer so that we minimize any risk to them. Since even before becoming police chief here, I've listened to so many folks in this community, as you have in the council meetings, come in, Zoom in, write comments that they want traffic enforcement, that they want to see a motorcycle officer. And what we are doing as your police department is listening to those voices and doing our homework and making sure we get this as efficiently and effectively as soon as we can, and that we make sure we grant those wishes, desires, and needs of the community to get a motor officer out there. So fortunately, we have a very successful history in the city with 2 prior motorcycle officers. Even Sergeant Bates was a motor officer who uniquely, when you talk to people in the community, was very successful and even made friends of people he gave tickets to. I don't understand how that works, but they talk about him positively. And it was remembered, and it's asked of us. And as you can see, as I've told people before, none of us are smarter than all of us in the police department. And Bob's wisdom and his ability to do research for us helps establish our need for a motorcycle. So I appreciate the team, and I'm excited to get this up and running.
Thanks, Chief. And I'll just note a couple of, I think that's the big picture overview and explanation, but a couple of the details. We have an opportunity to purchase, well, there's a wait list to purchase BMW motorcycles, police motorcycles, that is months long due to supply chain issues. We have an opportunity to purchase a demo motorcycle that has under 1,000 miles on it. And so I think the chief sweet talked the dealer into that. But so we were trying to pursue that opportunity. And the cost is expected, it will not exceed $45,000, and we actually think it'll be a little less than $45,000. We have that funding available currently. We have significant salary savings this year as we're working on recruitments. So we have that funding available from salary savings. And so with that, we are recommending that the council authorize the purchase of the BMW police motorcycle to reinstate motorcycle enforcement to address some of these traffic and safety concerns.
Does council have any questions?
You, motorcycle service.
Yeah, I can only go by what I've heard because there isn't great record keeping from 2013 when it was discontinued, but my understanding was it was a result of budget cuts at that time. So,
Thank you.
and I know we have officers who I think were both here at that time, and I don't know if that's matches what you understand as well.
That was my understanding, yes.
Thank you, Commander Albertson, for your presentation. Excellent job, and I especially appreciate the additional information above and beyond what was in the staff report. My initial concern when I looked at this was, are you coming to us with a comprehensive motor program? And I had a lot of questions about any potential additional costs that we might see down the road. Are we going to hire a new officer? Does that officer have to go through training? Liability, equipment, are all those costs being considered? And I got my answer, and we're still within the $45,000 range. And I understand we have some expertise within our department, so we wouldn't be, you wouldn't be coming back to us and asking for a new position. So I'm very excited about this. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I really appreciate the fact that tonight, I mean, this is all about traffic and the way that staff put together the agenda and the report so that we are looking at all the different tools that we have out there to address traffic. I'm just really happy and pleased with the staff's work on this and including your responses to all my questions. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any public comments?
There's one written public comment. I offer my wholehearted support for the reinstatement of motorcycle enforcement, given the high incidence of speeding vehicles on Ventura Road and the relentless flow of speeding trucks to and from the port. I am confident that motorcycle enforcement will be a valuable asset in ensuring road safety. In closing, I extend my best regards to you all and express my gratitude for your dedication to addressing our city's traffic concerns. Best regards, Joan Tharp.
Commander Albertson, is it true that the CHP is the only agency that could ticket trucks? I heard this rumor and I just didn't know if it's true or not.
That's incorrect.
Okay, yeah, because it just, but I guess the true part of it is the CHP can't inspect the trucks for safety, right? And that's something that, right? Is that true?
We can do commercial inspection as well. We work one on side by side with CHP, and it's about the training. It's not the agency.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The recommendation is to authorize the purchase of a BMW police motorcycle to reinstate motorcycle enforcement. May I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve?
Second.
Madam Clerk, can we take a vote? I don't think there's a need for discussion. No?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Albertson. Item number 11, investment policy update. Will staff please present the report?
And this one doesn't relate to traffic, so we tried to keep on theme, but this one it was important. And I'm going to turn it over to Lupe Acero, our finance director. But with just a brief introduction, the city has an investment policy. So unlike the last item where we said we didn't have one, we do have a current investment policy, or we have an investment policy, but it was last approved and updated in 2014. So it's not particularly current. It's important, so we want to, moving forward, we want to have the investment policy updated annually. So this is the first sort of bigger review and then update of the investment policy. And with that, we have Lupe, and we also have a representative from Chandler Asset Manager to give a little bit of background, and I'll save the rest of my comments for after that. So
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, members of the public. As Mr. City Manager mentioned, we do have an investment policy. It had not been updated since 2014. It should be practice going forward that will bring the investment policy before you every year. The investment policy before you right now has been updated based on Chandler's model policy. Back in June, council approved the city to enter into a contract with Chandler for investment and portfolio management services. And part of their scope was to review our existing policy and recommend any updates or changes. And really what were the three key items that I want to emphasize with this new policy. It's pretty comprehensive, but really it's targeting to safely preserve the portfolio, the city's portfolio. That's the number one principle. Have adequate liquidity to meet cash flow needs. So that is our focus. And then optimize returns while conforming to all federal, state, and local statutes governing public funds. So we are intending, if this is approved, we're going to start investing with Chandler Management approximately $20 million. And we included the income from that investment already in the budget for this fiscal year 24-25 and 23-24. So that estimated additional investment income was already it was included in the budget. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Kara Hooks from Chandler, and she'll go over the highlights of the investment policy. And then if there are any questions, we're here to answer any questions. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Lupe. As she mentioned, my name is Kara Hooks. I'm an associate portfolio strategist with Chandler Asset Management. And one of the items we do, as she mentioned, is a full review of an investment policy at the onset of a relationship. And then this would be an ongoing item that we would do with the city. If you could advance to the next slide, please. So I really like to start these presentations by giving a good understanding of what exactly California Government Code is. So the city is limited to investing in very high quality fixed income securities with a primary objective of principal preservation. So as you can see on this chart here, it is all investments within the investment universe. And then we've segmented it out to the very top portion in all green is what is allowed for short duration fixed income, or also California Government Code section 53601, which the city is permitted to invest within. So it will have different returns from, personal investment portfolios, but we just like to show this so that it kind of puts us all in the correct mindset. If you could advance to the next slide, please. So highlighting here, we went through and did offer our model policy, but within that, Lupe and I did review change by change the differences between the two policies. So the specific updates that we would look for are truly to diversify the portfolio, focusing on the most recent changes to California Government Code, pursuant to Senate Bills 998 from last year and 1489 from this year. Really, again, to allow greater diversification for the principal preservation and liquidity by opening the permitted investments to include specifically municipal securities, supranationals, corporate medium-term notes, pass-through securities, so those would be asset-backed securities or mortgage-backed securities. And really one thing to highlight there is even though we are putting them within the investment policy, we will continue to do our due diligence upon investing those funds to ensure it's an appropriate investment at that time. We also like to highlight, adjusting maximum percentages allowed per investment type and issuer. We found the best practice for Chandler is to further refine California Government Code by taking the restrictions within code and then putting a bit more restriction within the policy to ensure that there is safety principle. On the following page, we highlight a few more items within the investment policy. If you could advance to the next page, please. Thank you. So we've expanded the prohibited investments and practices section to better align with California Government Code. Some of these changes are due to the Senate bills, but others just kind of further refine the information that we see within that section. As the city has decided to engage with Chandler Asset Management, we'd like you to include language in there permitting the city to do so. It's recommended that this language be in there. It really authorizes us, and it also provides information when we are looking at broker dealers for investments. And then at the end of the investment policy, we'd like to include a glossary of the investment information within the policy to help further clarify any specific questions that may arise. Those are the highlights of the policy, but I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Does council have any questions for staff? Councilmember Hernandez and then Councilmember Gama.
Thank you, Mayor Martinez, and thank you, staff, for the report and the work on updating our investment policy. The only question I had was regarding the existence of a policy that addresses socially responsible investments. And I believe our city manager had come back with some language that might make sense to include. And I don't have that in front of me. I guess I didn't print out the last page of my comments. But perhaps you
Sorry.
could share that.
Sorry for the interruption. So the investment policy includes authorized investments, and then it includes prohibited investments. And so we were asked if the policy does include any social responsibility type language. The current policy does not. Well, and let me back up and explain. Some cities, especially more recently, have adopted language that says things like, we will not invest in nuclear, proliferation or nuclear items that in businesses that support nuclear weaponry or child labor or
human rights.
oil or climate related or human rights. And so we don't have that language in the policy. I have seen cities add language like that into the policies, and I can ask Cara if she has any expertise on that. We can do that. The one key point to bear in mind is that almost all of our investments go into either the local agency investment fund, which is the state's investment fund, or the Ventura County Investment Fund, which is the counties, which each have multi-billion-dollar portfolios. So we could include language like that. And it's always sort of the question of but then will the Ventura County Investment Fund or the local agency investment fund honor that? Or will they just simply, say thank you, but we're going to invest in what we want to invest in? So there's kind of, we could do it. I think the jury's out on how effective it is at this point. And let me ask Cara, because she probably works with multiple cities. Have you seen this before? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so you made an excellent point in that both LAIF and the Ventura Pool do invest to California government code. So they're already investing in all of these items and they won't have those specific stipulations in there. However, we do have some clients that will include some simple language within a management directive, which is outside of the investment policy. And it's something that we've already completed with Lupe. However, we can add a sentence in there that just states, you'd like to avoid, I think, like sale of firearms, or if you'd like to avoid perhaps investing in, non-energy conservation type entities. So we can put that in the management directive, which could then be more easily adjusted because it necessarily would not need to go to council if there were any changes. But there are some cities that include the language within their investment policies. And I'd be happy to provide samples of that language later on.
Thank you. And I think I forgot to answer the basic question, which is the language that I had suggested was something along the lines of the city will strive to invest in agencies that do or do not do this thing. And the reason why language like we will strive to helps is because sometimes it's out of our control, but we'll do the best we can. So if the council wants to add social responsibility language, we could add that type of language. That would be optional with the adoption of the investment policy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Kara.
Hi, Kara. So this investment policy is, it's not for the trust that we have set up. Is that correct? Because there's two separate paths. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the investment policy is for the investments of the city. So it would cover the current investments, which is the LAIF. We have also investment in Ventura County pool, and then any additional investments that we make through Chandler Management. So it would not cover the PARS Trust because that's a trust. So
Okay.
the funds we have in the trust are separate.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any public comments regarding this item?
No public comments.
The recommendation is to adopt a resolution adopting the updated annual investment policy for fiscal year 2023-24 and delegating authority to the city treasurer to invest and reinvest city funds and reciting resolution number 4096. May I have a motion and a second? And just for the record, I do want to make a motion to approve this, but also add the social responsibility policy.
Second.
Okay, any other motions? Madam, is there a discussion?
Can I get, I just want to make sure I understand. When I've seen the social responsibility language, I've typically seen like the specific action that we want to support or not support. And so we could adopt it now and come back with language options for that. Or if the council knows what social responsibility language would want to be included, we can just identify that now. But
Yeah, let's have that discussion. What would we like to add?
Well, that's where I'm a little murky here, is that we could determine the language that we want, but we cannot control the end investment, right? And so so I think we should just try to, clearly there are some things that would hopefully, we're not being invested in, like armaments and things like that. So I just would like to be able to move forward tonight and get this done. So I'm not sure if we can by adding that language, or can we?
I think the thought I have is that we can bring back on consent some basic language, some social responsibility language that could be added to the policy. And So I'd recommend adopting it tonight with direction that we bring back on consent language for a social responsibility policy. And then we can bring some options and and the council can strike or add whatever it wants.
Right. And then the follow-up is like, okay, so let's say that our social responsibility goals are not being met. What action do we do?
Yeah, and that's where the language we propose will be that, like, within the best of our ability, we won't knowingly invest in something that
Okay.
does something we don't want. But when we're investing in Leif and they've got literally billions and billions of dollars, they're not going to listen to us, most likely.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Is the motion clear? Jane?
I don't remember who made it. Would they accept that the adoption of the policy with direction to return with social responsibility language?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
All right, moving on to city manager comments and reports. Mr. Vega, do you have any comments or reports to share?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Kara.
Yeah, thank you, Kara. Ms.
And
Hooks
thank you, staff.
and Lupe. Sorry, I'm just zipping right through, huh?
So we did reported on the trip with the port, which was a great trip, and we were able to meet with several representatives. So I won't go through that again. But we also put a post on that on Facebook with more information. So we have that. We also rolled out the green bins, the compost bins, and those. We have gotten a couple questions about the scheduling of when they will start being dumped, and we're gonna start picking those up and dumping those bins this week. So those are two recent happenings.
City Manager, on that, what about the ones who have not received their bin yet?
So we are, Fred and I, the Public Works Director, we are going to go meet with some of the homeowners associations where we've identified some challenges with the bins, and we're going to meet with them and try to work with them on how to roll those out with them. So there are, to my knowledge, some of those, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, the homeowners associations that have the multi-family units or condos and apartments are the ones that we're still planning to meet with, correct, Fred? Okay.
And what about the single-family residents? For instance, mine does not have, we don't have our bins yet.
Yes, we had concentrated on everything from Bryce Canyon South, because on the north end of town, yours is unique in that it has that, but almost all of the others have other constraints where even when we started speaking about this, they had comments that, well, we don't have room for this, we don't, why do we have to, why, what do we, anyway, so that's why James arranged for us to meet with them, and we have some ideas of our own on how we might roll that out, but that might necessarily be what the individual places want to have, and maybe nobody probably knows their spaces better than they do, so they can help us help them. Ultimately, we have to get something that has to be given. State offers agencies the ability to grant exemptions, but we recently had our annual meeting with CalRecycle, and they said on the enforcement side of things, you're going to have some really strong reasoning to support why you would say somebody wouldn't get something in some fashion because of a space constraint. So ultimately, we have to get it all done. It's working it out in the details of what's going to be best. Another example is Hueneme Bay. I know when we first talked about this, there were people that were like, well, now it's another card I have to take and I don't really have anything. And so we're looking at things that maybe there's a way we can have a shared resource. Again, that might not be optimal either. We need to kind of listen to what the people have in mind too and see if that's something that works with us without it being detrimental to the overall program and the collection of all this stuff. So,
Is there a deadline to have this figured out where you have to, like the state put down some type of deadline where this has to be rolled out by such and such?
The enforcement part of it starts in 2024.
Okay.
But the state's also said, enforcement initially is going to be more of working with the agencies to say, okay, well, what challenges are you having? One of the big challenges everybody has is where do you take it? We have local places that aren't online yet. So that's a huge challenge. They don't seem to care about that very much though.
Yeah, this is another one of those unfunded state mandates where they told us to do something and figure out how to do it. And honestly, I thought you were going to say, I think the first deadline was like 2018.
Yeah.
And nobody figured it out. And so it's one of those ones that keeps getting extended. Fred and I talked about it. What we believe is if we can show we keep making progress, we're working towards it, we're not ignoring it, we're trying to get it going, that I think the state will stay on. Yeah, they'll stay happy with us. So we want to keep showing that we're rolling it out.
Correct.
Can I add something, or I could save it for my council comments? But I was suspect, like, okay, I came home to a green waste container. And I'm like, where am I going to put it? But then I noticed that there's leaves all over the sidewalk, and then so I started raking up the leaves and I put them in my green waste container. And I'm like, okay, I get it, because now the leaves aren't going to go down the drain anymore. And of course, I got plenty of energy, so now I'm want to see if I could fill up my green waste container. But my concern is that I know where Martha lives. You know, they have very, very minimal green waste that's not managed by the HOA. So please don't burden, those folks with the green waste container when all their green waste is being managed primarily by the landscape company. And then perhaps there could be a couple green waste containers there for the person who has, I don't know, a bunch of leaves like I do in my front yard. But I just hope that we identify the differences and make adjustments. And I'm enjoying my green waste container, by the way. I'm really into it. So
And that's the idea, is to address the individual places that have other constraints, so it works best for everybody. In the end, the state still wants, even if it's not green waste, they want to gather food waste as well, so.
Yeah, that was my question. It's not just about food waste. We also have to put food green waste in this as well, don't we?
Yes.
Real quick, just because this wasn't on the agenda,
Yeah, I brought it up. Sorry.
yes, we just move on and have this discussion another time. Thank
But
you, Mr. Camarillo.
we did a video update where we tried to explain some of this and trying to anticipate those, and we're meeting with other groups. So we'll move on from that, though. Thank you. And so for the last thing I'll mention is for the October 2nd meeting, we are planning a couple of items. One is our annual cannabis development agreement review. And so we're working on that. We're working on an executive summary of that for the council. And so we'll bring that on October 2nd. And then we also have the mural committee's recommendations returning to council for next steps on the mural. And then there's probably going to be a couple of other items we work through, but right now those are the two main items for October.
Let's move on to council member reports and comments. We'll start with council member McQueen LeJohn and work our way up.
Yard patio, more trash cans in the patio than I have my table that I want to enjoy out there. And I look around, there's trash cans everywhere. Now I have to add a third trash can. So I'm not really looking forward to that. Anyway, so
I'm sorry, Councilmember McQueen LeJohn. Can you just be a little closer to your mic? Thank you.
thank you. So I attended my meetings, nothing to report. I attended the RDP Regional Defense Partnership annual gathering. I participated in the Cayugas Water District tour, which was great. I do want to suggest that the folks that work in water consider participating if that's a possibility. Lots of information. I actually am going to be putting this folder in my box for whoever wants to take a look at it. It has some really nice maps of all the water. This is the California water map. And then on the very back, it has all the water sources, and then has information about them each. So I'll leave this in my box so anyone can take a look at it if they'd like to. Very informational. It was absolutely a wonderful trip. Again, would also encourage the council members to participate as well. The purpose of the tours, of course, was to expose the topic of water in the hopes that the participants would then go forward and continue to communicate the information. I participated or attended the United Water, Iron, and Manganese ribbon cutting ceremony, the Del Sol High School grand opening, the Associations of Water Agencies 28th Annual Member and Policy Reception at the Reagan Library, where, if you all may know recipients, but Mr. Brian Miller, who's the Chief of Staff for Supervisor Kelly Long, received a 2023 Annual AWA Annual Water Leadership Award. And then there was a gentleman, Mr. Samuel Gonzalez, Ventura County Water Distribution Supervisor, was the recipient of the AWA Frontline Utility Worker Appreciation Award. And finally, I'm sure Councilmember Gama is going to share, but just want to thank him for hosting the sisters, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at the beach cleanup on this past Saturday, and it was the chapter, Xi Kappa Omega chapter, where I'm the vice president. But I really appreciate his services and turn it over to him for whatever else he wants to share.
Yeah, really appreciate AKA, right? And the ladies came out not for a photo op, but to get busy. And we did. I think we walked 2 miles. And the ladies were like, they're just dedicated. So I was super excited that they came out, and it was fun. Had a really good time. So I appreciate that. Speaking of beach cleanups, Councilmember Hernandez and I are, for the 6th year in a row, I believe, maybe longer, we are our site for the annual California Coastal Cleanup. One of the things that we've learned is once a year isn't enough, and there is a tremendous amount of work to be done, not necessarily in Hueneme, but at the Ormond Lagoon. And we anticipate a couple hundred, if not more, participants. It's the largest volunteer effort worldwide, single-day volunteer effort worldwide. Over the years, we've done a remarkable work, and we're going to do it again this year, and we anticipate many volunteers. I'm going to be going over tomorrow to pick up the supplies, and really excited about that. Today, I'm wearing my tie, which is puzzle pieces, and I'm wearing it to support the Autism Society of Ventura County. They're having a 60,000 piece puzzle building endeavor right now at the Pacific View Mall. They started Saturday, and as of today, 12 puzzles were completed. And so if you think about a 60,000 piece puzzle, there's 61,000 piece puzzles. And it's a great event. It's a fundraising event, so you could go and make a donation and then spend some time putting these puzzles together. So I took my mom this afternoon before we had this meeting, and we spent a couple hours there, and Supervisor Levere was there, and some other notables, Councilmember Engler from Thousand Oaks, and it's pretty cool. So if you get a chance, go check it out, go help them out. And the puzzles are very difficult. They're not easy, and bring your glasses. You'll need them. But they're making progress, and it's a really big goal. So hopefully they'll reach that goal. Attended VCOG meeting this past Thursday, and there's a lot of things going on, updates. Most notably, DA Nazarenko came and provided us a fentanyl crisis update. Very scary, what's happening out there. You know, the bottom line is don't trust any pill unless you got it from the pharmacy. You should never accept a pill. So, oh, I got here. You want one of these? Help your headache. No, it's a whole different world that we're living in. Also, he gave us an update on the Family Justice Center, and the efforts that are going with regards to that. And so, it was a really good meeting. I'm going to be missing the Beacon meeting this Friday because I'm going to be at the California Cities event in Sacramento. But I talked to Mark Baylor, and I'm going to be getting an update from him after the meeting and see how it went and be able to report out. I'm really pleased. I'm excited, actually, beyond excited I just feel like we've turned a corner. This trip to Washington, D.C. with the port, it's something that we talked about for a very long time, and it took a long time to get together. And the fact that Mayor Martinez and Mayor Pro Tem Perez were able to go with the port really signals and speaks well of our partnership. And it is a partnership, and we need to focus on that partnership, and we need to work together on traffic issues and the other issues that we know are a challenge for the port. And if it's a challenge for the port, it's a challenge for our city. And I can tell you, because I work out there, traffic is the number one safety concern, both on the inside of the port and on the outside of the port. So we just got to keep working towards that. I'm really pleased and excited to see the Mar Vista sidewalk finally in place. It's an excellent safety enhancement for them. Last week, I attended the Ventura County. I took a vacation day to attend the Ventura County supervisors meeting, Board of Supervisors meeting. And the reason why I went is because of there's a group of people who are attacking animal services unjustly, in my view. And so I went there to support the director, Rose, and the staff of VC Animal Services. They do a wonderful job. It's a tough job, and I've seen firsthand many times. I've shown up there many times unannounced, and they always take me in the back. Where do you want to go? And every time I've been there, I see nothing but professionalism. And it's sad. We had to put our dog down, and so when you profess yourself to be a no-kill facility, which has been done over the last several years, it projects an inaccurate picture of what's going on there. And so you think about it, my dog got cancer, and from the moment we knew something was wrong, 6 days later, he was completely paralyzed. And so what typically happens when people have a dog that becomes ill, they just let him loose, and they know Animal Services is going to pick him up. And so when that animal gets to Animal Services and he's got cancer and he's got problems, you got to do the right thing and stop the suffering. And so there's a loud, vocal group of people that think you should never euthanize any animal, and that's just not realistic. And so if I know some of you may have seen those emails, and there was overflow capacity at the county supervisors meeting. I would estimate 90% of the people there were in support of VC Animal Services and the work that they do, and they do a really good job. But it's a tough job, and you got to do what you have to do in the best interests of the organization and the animals. So if you want to help, then help us control animal populations. And I had a dog. We found a dog that came to our yard, and of course we took him in, and of course he had an infection and he had all kinds of problems, and we took him to VC Animal Services, and they patched him up and got him all good, and we were going to adopt him, and he was adopted out before we could get back there to get him. And I couldn't believe it, but that illustrates there's so much good going on there, and every now and then there's a dog that is biting people, and you can't adopt out a dog that's biting people. You just can't do it. And so if you hear those voices, and if you ever want to come down and take a tour, please do, and know that we have an absolute professional, wonderful team in Ventura County Animal Services.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilman Gama, for reporting on the VCAS hearing that took place at the Board of Supervisors meeting. I watched that, and because I was really confused over what was going on. I was receiving all these emails, and I couldn't really make a decision alone on whether or not they were justified or they were credible complaints against Jackie Rose. And so when I heard her presentation, it totally gave me a different mindset. And I did hear you were there in support of of Jackie Rose. You represented the city and your position as a VCAS board member. And I thought you did a really good job. It was very articulate. And so thank you for doing that. I also not only reviewed the BOS meeting, but also for the VCAS presentation, but also for the general plan, which is part of the agenda on that day. And it's always really great to at least watch the recording if you can't watch in the live meeting, to just catch up on what's going on countywide. It was really helpful. I learned a lot during that meeting. So as far as my committee meetings attended, I attended the Transportation Committee and Regional Policy Committee of the Southern California Association of Governments. Thank you, Martha, Councilwoman McQueen-Lejeune, for standing in for me at VRSD, because there was definitely a meeting conflict while I attended that meeting in Los Angeles. I also attended the Cal State Channel Islands Site Authority audit meeting. I'm on the board there, and we're fulfilling our duties doing an audit. I also want to thank Chief Williams for hosting us for the 9/11 ceremony. We had about 5 officers out there, and the firefighters from the station and some residents show up, and it was a nice turnout. And thank you for inviting us in for a tour of the station. That was really special. We had toured that station before, so thank you for that. I also attended the RDP annual gathering at Charlotte Craven's home, the AWA policymaker meeting at Reagan Library. And one of the issues that was brought to my attention, they recognized that sanitation worker, right? You had his name, he was a wastewater supervisor. It was a water supervisor, not wastewater, I think.
No, it was water, just water.
Just water. So what's happened is that AWA is taking on an effort to make water workers recognized as first responders. They ran into some situations during one of the fires where when they'd go to get to relief and assistance or just to get fed, they were turned away because they weren't recognized as first responders, and that can't happen. And so they're going to carry the torch on that. And as a former emergency manager, I am all for recognizing public works personnel and water workers as first responders. You've got to get in there and you've got to clear the roads. You got to fix the roads. You got to repair the water lines to deliver those essential lifeline services. So I hope to work with the AWA on this issue in the future. I also attended the POW MIA ceremony at the VFW. I didn't know it was going on. I was passing out posters for the coastal cleanup, and I discovered as I went by there that they were going to have a ceremony, so I decided to join them in the ceremony. It was very nice. And then they did some flag burning at the end. People who have old flags that are tattered and soiled, you can take them to the VFW and they will discard them appropriately. Let's see. I just want to talk about the coastal cleanup real quick. I've been out distributing folders, and I have an event page on Facebook generating some support for volunteers. I'm still looking for volunteers to assist with registration. I've got Becky, Mayor Pro Tem Perez, Luis Mendez, and I think I have one more. So I could use more help at the registration counter. And there are posters available. I'll leave them in the council room. So if you guys have any, if the rest of you have any place where you can post a poster, I appreciate your help in putting that up. I should be able to serve as alternate on the Beacon meeting. I can attend remotely, so I can do that. I will be leaving that off that afternoon, so I should be able to, or that morning, I should be able to participate remotely. And then also I had an early planning meeting with a member of our community, Nancy Yancy Koza, who's a local artist, and Jessica Cornejo from Anna Cappuccino. And Jessica's celebrating her 20th anniversary this year, so they'll be doing an art show. And when we get to agenda items, I'll be asking for a proclamation for her to celebrate her 20-year anniversary. And then also, I just want to thank Johnny Listman, who was here earlier, and Luis Mendez for stepping up and agreeing to serve on the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging Commission. So thank them for volunteering. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I don't have any committees to report on. Just want to say that we had a good trip and we met a lot of people. I think we left our name in everyone's mind by the time we got out of there. The port did a great job of a joint presentation, and there were moments where Kristen was a fireball fighting for grant money to help support security issues and support the police department for what they do for the port themselves. So it's just a fun trip and very educational and a whirlwind. I think we did 11 meetings in 2 days.
Exhausting. You forgot exhausting.
Exhausting, but I think we did what we sought to do, and that's the most important part. Because now they're going to remember us when we want to submit grants and commit meetings to the Navy and create a relationship out of that has been stagnant for some time. And we need to build on that and join the.
Association of Defense Community.
There you go, and that's it. Thank you.
I'll mention that at the Port of Huenemi's meeting today, President Herrera mentioned that his expectations, it was better than what he expected it would all be. So he was very proud of the outcome. And I'd just like to mention that I think that the city and the port did a really good job of representing our community. And you would all be very proud if you were there. So
Thank you for representing. It was really
it
good.
was a really wonderful experience. Something new, but I think it's something that we should continue every single year so that every council member gets the opportunity to go to DC. That being said, I don't think I have anything else to report. So we're going to move on to requests for future agenda items. I'd like to remind council members that all requested items will require a motion, a second, and majority vote per adopted council policies to be placed on future agenda. Does anyone have any requests for future agenda items? Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I would like to request an agenda item with a proclamation to Jessica Cornejo and Anna Cappuccino for their 20th anniversary. And if you need help with the language, I'm sure some of us can help put that together.
Is there a date?
I think it's October 14th. She's hosting an art
Okay.
show,
Okay.
and she'll be issuing flyers. I'll get confirmation on that date. I have it on my phone. I
So
think it's the 14th.
So we'd, assuming that it gets support, we would put it on for the October 2nd
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
I'd like to ask for an open discussion with the base in regards to the parking on San Pedro. Maybe that might open up some parking. That's a request.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Are there any other future requests? All right, the next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 2nd, 2023 at 6:30 PM. I'd like to adjourn the meeting. The time is now 9:07 PM. Everyone, please get home safe and have a good night.